Okay, quick question. You are writing code and want to roll a die to use the result for something. How would you do it? Well, the easiest solution would be to use a simple randomizer and then return a value between 1 and 6. Quick, simple, problems pretty much solved. What if I don't want a 6-sided die? What? What if I want my dice to have 12 or 20 sides? Oh, well, you could add how many sides your dice would have in the method and can freely pick between them. What if I want to have the values multiplied instead of regular dice? Well, pretty much the same thing, just add an extra variable. But what if I want to choose what numbers each side has? Well, by that point you should just pass a list of numbers representing a die and then pick a random value out of those. Well, what if I want... Dice are rather peculiar. Under most circumstances, solving them is completely trivial. You just need to know how many sides it has and what values it's going to be using, and all rolling operations can be solved through a very basic randomizer. But the moment you decide to roll anything that is not a number, everything starts to slowly fall apart on its complexity. The rolling part can theoretically still be solved the same way as before, picking out a value randomly. But the faces each die has should get their own class to contain whatever extra work you want out of it. So, let's start at the very bottom then, a dice face class. It should definitely contain an integer, because you can roll numbers with it, and if you want any custom values out of it, this number could maybe be interpreted as stacks of that effect. There is a lot more flexibility on how to interpret the custom value part though. In my case, I would like for it to be a status effect. Whenever you roll dice, you can have an additional risk of causing additional complications to your own character or your target, in exchange for being able to otherwise roll higher than normal values. This could be easily solved by simply creating an enumerator that contains all potential status effects, leaving it just there. Except not. If I really want there to be status effects for both sides, I would effectively need to duplicate all the enumeration values to take both situations into account, which would end up creating a lot of scalability problems down the line. So instead, let's go one step down, a dice face type class, if you will. One of its items would be the actual status effect, while another item would instead be a second enumerator, indicating what type of dice face we're dealing with, hence the name. And I can summarize this with 4 values. The first half would be normal and penalty, indicating that the face is a regular numeric one and either a positive or negative value. The other 2 are self and target, indicating who should be affected by the given status effect provided in this class. Give the status effect a none status as well, and all of the necessary components to define what the face of a die is should be here. All that's left is to make a constructor for this class, and with this we can finally build a second value for the dice face class, as well as its constructors, a quick one for simple numeric values and a regular one where any penalties or status effects with the correct target can be assigned. Okay, we can finally go up a step and actually create a dice class that will now contain all faces as potential rollable values. But really, there isn't that much to actually do here by this point. First, a simple list that holds in dice face, then a roll method that can randomly pick a value from this list. And to top it off, a few constructors to initialize a die. In my case, I'd like to be able to quickly make a regular 6-sided die, one with custom numeric values and one with any kinds of values. And that's it. You can now just create a new die whenever you need to roll it. What if I want the face to have more than one effect? What? What if I want a face to have more than one effect? Oh, I suppose that's possible. You could turn the dice face items into lists and then fill those up when using dice constructors. But it's going to make everything more complicated. Think about it. From the developer's perspective, initializing dice would become way more frustrating due to how the setup process would change, and you would need to create unique icon combinations for every potential combination of effects, a way to display it to the user coherently, etc. And as fun as the idea of rolling a 6 but also breaking your bones is, for the end user, it's just going to end with more complexity that can turn off players. Maybe for mod support in the future? I'll think about it. Anyway, the dice are done, but we still kind of need a way to use this data. From this point, any code written is going to get a lot more awful... creative. Let's go up yet another layer and make a general dice manager class. In there, I'll consider making lists for dice that would end up always being rolled, as well as possible extra dice for specific rolling situations, and one more list for dice that the player is allowed to use. I'll worry about showing them in-game later. Another method to use would be some quick initialization method to be able to use regular dice, a method to change the current regular dice, some extra methods for the extra dice, and topping it off with another dice rolling method. I should try rolling with it a bit. Yeah, that appears to work just fine. However, analyzing the results is a bit of a pain. How about another class? That always patches things up. And this time, an event roller class. The goal here would be to handle some special conditions for what dice would be allowed to roll. I'll worry about that part in another time. But the main thing would be to create yet another class that this class would call, that summarizes all rolling results in a neat and tidy way. So, what would I need? Probably whatever numeric result needed, the total sum rolled, any difference on it in case I might want to consider using that for damage checks, if the general roll case was successful, and a quick way to check any status effects that you or your target have gotten. Then pack it all up into a neat constructor. Now that we have this, how about giving another check? Okay, you wanted to use these dice to roll for the following value. Here, you succeeded with your roll, here are all your status effects, and here are yours. Hey, wait a sec. That should be everything by this point, so I should finish it off with... Wait, please wait for a moment. What is it now? What did you do with the randomizer? What do you mean? It's just a regular randomizer. Yeah, but it's technically pseudo-random. What if I want it to be more random? You do realize you need external gear to do that, right? But true randomness is impossible otherwise. If you're really desperate for more randomness, then you could create a new randomizer after it's been used for a random amount. Okay, then what about making it less random? Wait, what do you mean? Where are you going? Okay, so this is a genuine topic that went through my mind on considering some form of seeded level generation. However, explaining what I have in mind would need an example. So, Slay the Spire, a roguelite card game that got so popular that there have been tons of games that copy its mechanics. None of that here is all that important though. The main thing is how I assume its level generation works. You start a run and the seed is either randomly generated or provided by the player, which is fed to the randomizer. The code would likely end up generating all levels and routes in a particular order that would always be repeated every time you would start a new run with the exact same seed. In addition, any results that these rooms can have are also pre-calculated. Suppose you enter a room where you can get some loot and you're shown a chance that you will end up getting it, at the cost of getting hurt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, You close the game, reopen it, try again, and it would take exactly 6 times again. The results on how many times you would need to roll before your final successful chance are also pre-calculated, and all of these results could be trivially saved in some kind of text format inside your save file, from which it fetches results. I thought that maybe something like this could be implemented in my particular case. Except, there's just one problem though. None of this has anything to do with throwing dice. Think about it for a second. It is possible to pre-record what face a die is going to land on based on its index count, but that only works if all dice have the same number of sides. And there's a far larger issue here when doing that. If you don't have any way to save the game, it's pointless to do this in the first place, and if you do save this data, it becomes really abusable. Like intentionally using bad rolls in places that aren't important and good rolls at crucial moments. I would much rather prefer sparse save points between areas in my idea anyway. Sure, the rollouts would be abusable at the start, but it also gives some room for experimentation for people getting used to the game, while also making the whole issue moot anyway once you reach close to the next point. The most ideal sections with difficulty bumps where your rolls are going to matter the most, as well as planning what to roll for. At the end of the day, both random approaches have their own benefits and issues, so whatever works for you, I suppose. I find that probably going for a fully random solution with no options for seeded content, at least for dice rolls, is going to be better off for me. Speaking of, some of you may be wondering why you even go through the effort of creating these custom dice. Well, suppose this. You're in a bit of a bind. An enemy has spotted you and you don't have any safe options to disengage the situation. You also don't exactly have a lot of health left either. One hit from the enemy is enough for you to pass away. What options do you have? You already know you can't run away. From your current range, melee is not a favorable position either. The only true choice left is to shoot your gun at it, but at the same time, your character is not the most proficient at handling firearms. You go for it anyway. You try to steady your breathing. It fails. You try to focus on the enemy, aim for body parts that are not easy to miss. It succeeds. You attempt to steady your footing, knowing full well that the recoil will knock you off balance otherwise. It fails. You are about to shoot, but the results from previous rolls have not exactly left you in a good position. You could take a gamble as is, but there is a better option. With this die, your odds would be in a far better position. Sure, you might risk death, but being put in a corner the way you are, you would still be better off. You roll it. The gun fires, hitting your enemy straight at the center, completely pulverizing them. You're safe, for now, but at the same time, that gunshot made a lot of noise. Noise that loads of enemies in hiding have heard, and are now going for you. How long have you really delayed the inevitable? That's the kind of game idea that I would eventually want to make. Okay, I'm all diced out. It's over. There isn't anything left to talk about here. I mean, I suppose I can quickly mention what I have been doing these past... I don't even know how many months I've let this channel slumber. For one thing, I've been practicing 3D modeling. They're still pretty much a work in progress. No idea on what kind of video I could make of them in the future. The other thing is that I've been slowly learning about Godot. The first video and my previous projects were made in Unity, and I'm pretty sure you're plenty aware of what happened there. Creating this video itself was also a way for me to understand Godot, but before I got to this point, I made a rough test project on getting that YouTube chat integration thing working in this, although it's just a bare bones test. It has a GitHub page if you're interested. I really don't understand why people complain about Unity being half-baked when Godot breaks far harder at things most people wouldn't even consider as a problem. I know that game physics is one thing, but I won't be using it much outside of these videos anyway, and there do exist some ways to circumvent it. You know what can't be though? Audio. Imagine any game that you're running sound like this all the time, whether it's in a separate build that players use, or even directly in the editor. All audio stutters. You want to know why? Any game made with Godot 4 has a secret audio breaking bug for anyone that is using an external sound card. It's something related to the drivers having a bug in them that didn't exist in Godot 3 but was introduced in 4. There is a GitHub issue page where people have been slowly discussing about it as well, but a concrete solution hasn't been made yet. And really, this should be treated as a showstopper bug. Sure, this is not an issue for like 99% of people, since who needs an external sound card, right? But imagine you're a streamer who is using one because they have a microphone with one of those silly 3-prong cables, or you're a sound designer slash hobbyist. Imagine having spent over 1,000, no wait, 2,000? Actually, hang on. Over 3,000 euros on a variety of audio equipment and software. It's been working without issues for you for a long while across all operating systems and programs, only for Godot to simply pop up and exclaim, no. Okay, for real though, I'm done ranting now. The next video will likely be something about probabilities or something like that. Go away. Shoo.